Michigan is an embarrassment to the Big Ten. They should be banned from even being able to play in the playoffs. Plus, should Wisconsin pull a Colorado this offseason and completely redo the roster? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every day. I got to say, I've been doing this show for a while, and every show I start with, thank you for joining us. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for helping build this. I hope that those words are really coming across as sincere as I mean them. Like a year and a half ago, when we just started this YouTube channel and this show, and there was no subscribers, to have grown to where we are now and to have conversations with other Badger fans and have people tuning into shows, I'm telling you, it means so much to me. You guys have no idea. I still don't understand how this show has grown up. There's so many smarter people than me, and there's so many. Thank you. Thank you so much for helping us build this channel and this community and the Discord. And it just means a lot. So thank you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, I need to get this off my chest. This is a Wisconsin show, right? Obviously, it's Locked On Badgers. I am sick and tired of Michigan right now. And Michigan is obviously Big Ten, and sometimes, listen, this is a Badger show, but sometimes the Big Ten's a family. It's an extended family. Some cousins like Rutgers, we don't really acknowledge. That's like a second cousin. They don't really come to much, right? Maybe they come to the Christmas party once in a while. But Michigan's a core member of the Big Ten family. They're like an uncle, a brother, a sister. Yeah, we'll call them a sister. Sometimes when someone in your family is acting a fool, you have to sit them down and say, stop it. Stop it. Your family, this is ridiculous. Stop it. Michigan needs to stop it. They cheated. Michigan cheated, right? They cheated to create a non-sportsmanlike advantage. They cheated. And I am so sick and tired of Michigan parading around like the world is against them, like they're the victims here, that they've gone through adversity. No, if you lose your house to a fire, that's adversity. If you've had a ton of injuries in your program, that's adversity. If you lost a basketball assistant coach because of a tragic car accident, that's adversity. Getting caught cheating is not adversity. Lord help me if my son ever cheats on a test and comes home and says, Dad, I've been through so much adversity. I got caught cheating. Man, you march your butt up into your room and you shut the heck up and think about what you just said and did, right? Michigan got caught cheating. This is the quote from the Big Ten. I think this is a money quote, and I want to talk about it a little bit. The University of Michigan has been found in violation of the Big Ten sportsmanship policy for conducting an impermissible in-person scouting operation over multiple years. Here's the money quote part of this. Resulting in an unfair competitive advantage that compromised the integrity of competition. That last sentence is incredibly important here. Resulting in an unfair competitive advantage that compromise the integrity of competition. Now, why is this such a damning quote? Well, it comes from the Big Ten. Who does the Big Ten have a vested interest in this year? It's Michigan, right? For them to listen, the Big Ten is desperate for a football title, right? The Big Ten is also going to do what they can to protect their cash cows, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. And for them to come out and say, suspend Michigan's coach, Jim Harbaugh, in the middle of a title run and say without any type of gray area, competitive advantage, compromise the integrity of competition. What's another word for that? Cheating. It's cheating. They cheated. And the fact that the Big Ten is willing to so clearly lay that out means the evidence is overwhelming. It's ridiculous. They cheated. They broke the rules to create a competitive advantage. At the center of all sports is the idea that integrity's there, right? That it is a level playing field. And we know it's not truly ever a level like Michigan is not playing on a level playing field with Rutgers or Wisconsin, right? They have a ton of advantages. But at least from a competitive standpoint, the rules are the same, right? That you don't cheat. You don't there's certain things you don't do. You don't go to this level to steal signs. You don't signal in to what the other team is going to do and then shift your defense to change it. Like they cheated. The Big Ten said it without saying it. They said you cheated. You cheated. And then for Michigan to come out and act like they're victims, they're lucky that Harbaugh's just suspended for 3 games. They shouldn't be able to play in the playoffs this year. They are the Houston Astros. This is a quote from Harbaugh. America loves a team that beats the odds, beats the adversity, overcomes what naysayers and the critics and the so-called experts think. That's my favorite kind of team. He went on to say it's America's team. No, you're not beating the odds. You're not overcoming the adversity if you get caught cheating. Like, stop. When you see the players and the coaches sobbing on the sidelines, this one's for Harbaugh. Like, stop it. The man's not on his deathbed. He got caught cheating. Enough. Enough of this ridiculousness, this self-righteousness. You got caught cheating. And you shouldn't freaking have to. You're Michigan, for gosh sake. Like, you already recruit in the top 1 percentile of college football. Stop cheating. Like, Connor Stallions, right, for multiple years has been doing this. And the idea that nobody else in the organization knew, are you kidding me? Like, he's just been going around doing this and standing right next to the offensive and defensive coordinators the entire game, and nobody had an idea? Stop. That's ludicrously BS. And I'll tell you another one. If nobody truly had an idea, which I don't buy, I don't buy that for a second, that this guy is a mastermind of this entire operation and nobody knew. But if you did buy that, that it doesn't matter. Harbaugh's in charge. Like, Harbaugh is in charge of the operation. I come from the Navy. In the Navy, the captain's in charge of everything. 100%. If he's sleeping in his bunk on the sub and the sub hits another ship, the captain's getting fired. It doesn't matter. You're in charge of the entire operation. So, no, it's not an excuse. Whether you knew or not, that's your operation. You should be held accountable, and your team should be able to play in the playoffs this year. Like, you got caught cheating. Nothing is more important than the integrity of the sport. Period. Done. Stop. You are the Houston Astros, who, quite frankly, also got off way lighter than they should have for that ridiculousness. I'm telling you, it ticks me off. It ticks me off. And I understand that Michigan fans are going to circle the wagons because that's what fans do. But the fact that the rest of the Big Ten has basically gone to the commissioner, they've gone to the Big Ten, they've said, no, this is ridiculous. Michigan cheated. Stop. The fact that the Big Ten released this statement, the fact that Michigan's playing a victim, it's all absolutely ridiculous. You cheated. You got caught. You're not a victim. I don't think you should play in the playoffs this year. Sorry. Like, do not pass go. Go straight to jail. That's called consequences. That's what we talk to with our children, right? No, you can't do this because you did X, Y, and Z. That's a consequence. So I'm sick of Michigan acting like a victim. It's ridiculous. They cheated. They created a competitive disadvantage, a competitive advantage for themselves, and they should have consequences for it. It's my opinion, but that's where I'm at. All right, we're coming up. We're going to talk about, should Wisconsin pull a Colorado? Does that level of roster revamp need to happen? We're going to talk about the next on Locked On Badgers, but first, a quick break for friends of the show over at Jace Medical. I've talked often about Jace Medical and the need to be able to empower yourself and empower your family to take care of themselves. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for major weather, or you're just in a supply chain shortage. I talked about this the other day. My local pizza joint still has a supply chain shortage of mozzarella. That's ridiculous. Jace Medical is here for all your medications for those supply chain shortages, and you can get 12 months of daily medications. If you have any type of prescription, Cialis, Viagra, whatever it is, you can get that prescription for 12 months through Jace Medical to ensure that you are covered in case there is a supply chain issue getting to the pharmacy. If you or someone you love would like to get that peace of mind in having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com and see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. That's jacemedical.com, locked on for $20 off your purchase for that year's supply of your daily medications, or for life-saving antibiotics. It's all on jacemedical.com. All right, let's get back into this conversation here. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, I want to take your comments. I put this out on Twitter a couple days ago, and just it wasn't what I wanted. Wasn't the reactionary Twitter clicks. A lot of people put stuff out like, Badger fans, I need your immediate reaction to this. I wanted how do you feel going into the offseason? Like, what are your thoughts going into next year right now? Where are you at as a Badger fan? And I collected those. I want to talk about some of them. The first one is, and I mentioned it, was, let me see if I can find the exact comment. This is from Bob S. He said they just need to do a Colorado. Start clean with all new players outside of transfers and Fickell's recruits. Woller's comment said it all. I talked about Woller on the show yesterday, talking about how some players aren't bought in. I want to start with the big picture here. They just need to do a Colorado and start clean with all new players. It's not working for Colorado right now, right? It started out better, but it hasn't sustained. Here's the thing. There is a limit to the amount of turnover you can have for, I think, a lot of reasons, right? Football, you're talking 85 guys. How many can you realistically turn over in a year? And by the way, transfer guys all want to play. You can't build depth that way. You can't sell an entire 30, 40 transfers coming in that they're going to play. So you can't rebuild the roster completely that way like Colorado tried to do. And again, it's not really working for Colorado. They don't have the depth. So do they need to hit the portal incredibly hard this offseason? Yeah, they do. They probably need 10 to 15 guys again. But it's still going to come down to building this team through high school recruiting, right? That's where it's still going to come down to. And that's why we didn't recognize it. I didn't recognize it. I take fault on that. That's a Locked On Liars take. It's going to take a couple years. They have to rebuild the core of this roster, and the core of this roster is going to be built through the high school recruiting class. Now, again, do they need to hit the portal hard? Yeah, they really do at a lot of spots. Think about it. What spots could use a impact transfer portal addition? I would say quarterback. I would say running back. I'd say receiver. I'd say offensive line, tight end, defensive line, linebacker, safety, right? Like maybe not safety, punter. That's a lot of spots. So they're going to hit the portal hard, but I don't think it's going to be a Colorado level rebuild because I don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's sustainable, and I think it's going to lead to more culture issues, right? Remember, a lot of guys in the portal, we saw it this year, and we got swept up in it, but how many of those portal additions this year have made a big impact on the team? Think about Darian Varner. Hasn't made the impact we had hoped. You think about a guy like Jake Renfro, hasn't even played. CJ Williams, not a big impact. Bryson Green starting to come on as late, but not the impact that we had hoped. Nick Evers hasn't played, for example. Like it's not as simple as just bringing in transfers either. So, yeah, a lot of changes needed, but I don't think it's going to happen on a Colorado scale, and I don't think a Colorado scale would be successful. Let's talk about, this was from Chris Tukey. He mentioned it shouldn't take too much to turn around from here, but to get back to a top 3 Big Ten team at least is 2 more years to restock that quality of line play. Think about, I thought this comment was interesting because the idea of a third, like what does the third best Big Ten team look like at this point? So you're going to have an Ohio State, a Penn State, a Michigan, a USC, and Oregon, and Washington, Iowa, Wisconsin. A top 3 Big Ten team is really good, right? A top 3 Big Ten team going forward might have won the Big Ten some years in the last 10, right? So, yeah, he mentioned it shouldn't take too much to turn around from here. But to get back to that top 3 level team, I don't even know how realistic that is in the next couple of years because those programs coming in, they're recruiting at a really high level. And Wisconsin in the last 5, 6, 10 years hasn't been able to get over that Michigan Ohio State hump for the most part anyway. So it's a battle. Like the Big Ten's a battle going forward, and it's not going to be easy. This is from CT Badger. He said they could be better the next 2 years and have a worse record than 23, making it harder for Fickell if he can't turn around. He'll be gone, and then we're looking at a 5 to 6 year slide at best. I thought this was a really interesting comment with the idea that this team could get better over the next couple of years, but the record not improve because of the quality of competition, because of the schedule. This year's schedule was a joke. We talked about it, right? We've talked about it at a time. This year's schedule was and is an absolute joke, which is why it's so frustrating that this is the product we're seeing on the field. This team could get better and not win more games the next 2 years. And then how do you evaluate Luke Fickell? Let's say next year this team is better, but they win 7 games, right? Because you're playing a Bama, a USC, It's a really tough schedule. I think Oregon as well, right? Like it's a really hard schedule. So how do you evaluate Luke Fickell if the win and loss record doesn't get better, even if the team does? That's why you have to give it time. You absolutely have to give it time. I've talked about this. You can't. The quickest way to sustain mediocrity is to continue cycling coaches. It's to get into that coach cycle where you're constantly searching for the next guy and you're never giving anybody enough time to establish their system, get their players in, and really build what they want to do. You have to have patience. And that's the hardest thing to have in today's society. This is a quick trigger society. It's a Twitter society. It is a hot take society. It is a ESPN drama society where everyone's yelling all the time and you got to change, you got to change, you got to do this. Well, if you keep doing that and you never give coaches enough time, even the good ones, they're not going to succeed and you're never going to establish culture. So that's where I've constantly pushed back, where people say we're the next Nebraska. You're not the next Nebraska yet because you haven't cycled through a bunch of coaches, right? That's what Nebraska did. They made excuse me, they made successive bad hires and they kept cycling coaches. You have to give Luke Fickell time, and that time has to be at least 3-4 years, period. There can't be any ambiguity there. There can't be any question. Whether you like to hire or not, now that he's here, he has to be given time. He absolutely has to, because here's the other thing. What are you going to do? Like Luke Fickell was the home run hire. If he doesn't work and you want to cycle him out already, what's the answer? Jim Leonard? I don't know, but you got to give him time. This one is from Tail Chaser. He said, we saw it on the field. The locker room is divided. It's not a good sign for a first-year coach. Yeah, I mean, I think the locker room divided thing, Hunter Wohler talked about it, right? It's not a good sign. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it's fine. No, it's not a good sign. No, he has time to fix it. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not a good sign. This one is from Mark Murphy. He said the turnaround depends on how deep the NIL purse is. They have to hit the portal hard. And they will. They will hit the portal hard. I mean, again, is that going to be the quick fix? It wasn't this year, right? I think you hit the portal hard again. If you have to really look for a position or two, you absolutely need. Let's talk about it. What are the biggest needs from the transfer portal standpoint going into next year? It's deep. They absolutely need a pass rusher, right? They need somebody disruptive on the defensive line. I think you're bringing in Anelu Lafayette. I think he could start at outside linebacker. It's a tall task to ask him to be an impact pass rusher right away. You need a dude in that front seven who's going to hit quarterbacks. That's it. That's it. This team has a hard ceiling if you don't find more people who can hit quarterbacks. And they don't have anybody on the roster right now that consistently does that. So I think that's a huge one. And I think they're going to go get a veteran quarterback. I think those two positions, if you land those, that requires it by themselves requires a deep NIL purse. And then I think you still need another receiver, a tight end, probably another corner. Like there's a big a center, a tackle. Like there's a lot of positions of need on this team right now. But I think you got to start a defensive line and you got to spend whatever you can potentially spend to get that impact pass rusher, because that is a huge need on this team. Whiskey Pablo, this is a good take. We live in a society that requires instant gratification, which unfortunately leaves many unable to even recognize the process, but I trust it. Brighter days are ahead. I love that take. And I actually mentioned something earlier. We live in a quick trigger, ESPN, Twitter-fueled society where we want immediate turnarounds. But we talk, again, I don't want to gloss over the fact that I thought this turnaround would be pretty immediate. I was wrong on that 100%. Like, that's on me. But it doesn't mean you got to toss it all out after 1 year either. Like, this is an incredibly good point by Whiskey Pablo. This society we live in, if we want things quick, and because of that, like how would Barry Alvarez necessarily navigate in this society if the first couple of years were what he had? Like, people would be after him as well. Now, he took over a different situation, I agree, but he was still given the time to turn it around and put his players in his system in. Luke Fickell's first year at Cincinnati was a disaster, and fast forward several years, he's in the playoffs with Cincinnati. We have to give it time, is all I'm saying. All right, I want to take a quick break, talk about our good friends of the show over at LinkedIn, and then come back and talk about how far away are we? Is it a 2-year rebuild, a 3-year rebuild? Plus, big game against Providence coming up basketball side. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at LinkedIn. And again, LinkedIn is the number one hiring platform that's out there. Every new hire feels like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain you can hire the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. They have incredible tools, gets rid of all the people who have no business being in your interview. I remember very vividly having one guy come into an interview to actually take my old job as I was getting a new one. And that guy talked about murdering his wife during the job interview with an axe, by the way. And that directly led to me getting a raise and keeping my job because they said, we can't hire that guy. He's a psychopath. He's going to kill somebody. Let's keep Ryan instead. At least we know he's not crazy. So LinkedIn Jobs, if they had just done that, that psychopath never would have gotten in the door. That's what LinkedIn Jobs is there for, to get rid of all the people that have no business interviewing for your job. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, let's take some more comments. I want to just continue to talk about how far we potentially are away. This is from Cody Schmidt. He said the Badgers are 2 years away. 2025 is when we'll start to see a difference. Fickell and his staff need more time to get more athletic, just like the basketball team. So here's my question for everybody. And I would love to get your take on this and talk about it on the next show. Let's say this comment from Cody Schmidt, and thank you, Cody, for dialing in or writing in. Let's say this is correct. Let's say we're 2 years away as to be competitive, to start seeing the difference. How patient are the fans going to be? So we're talking like 2025, right? You hired him this year, and everybody thought air raid, Longo, quarterbacks, bad schedule. We're going to turn around right away. That doesn't work. The next year doesn't work. Are fans going to be patient? Are they even being patient right now in year one? Like that's going to be where the pressure ratchets up, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for Chris McIntosh, who made this dramatic hire. It's going to be difficult for Luke Fickell. You wonder what happens if it doesn't turn around by the end of next year. Are the coordinators going to stay? Is Luke Fickell going to feel the pressure to maybe move on from Longo or Tressel if it's not working out? It's going to be really interesting to see the patience level from this fan base, because next year is a brutal schedule. And I agree with the previous comment that we could be a lot better and still only win 7 games. It's going to be interesting to gauge the mood of the room, especially when there's this contingent of fans and a few media members who are still pining for Jim Leonhard. And they're going to use every loss as a marquee sign pointing to a picture of Jim Leonhard and saying, we should have gone that way. I'm just saying it's going to be an interesting journey is what I would say there. John has a comment. The talent was supposed to be an upgrade over last year, but the team is somehow worse. Do they need NFL talent at every position just to field a competent offense? This is a good question. I would say this. Because this is kind of where we get into the roundabout conversation of, the coaches are changing all the scheme. So we're giving them a pass, but at the same time, why are you trying to fit square pegs into round holes? As a coach, you need to adjust your scheme to the players. This offense has been really bad for a couple weeks now, and that's on Longo. That's on the coaches. It's also on the players. There's blame everywhere. But yeah, it is a good question, John. And they should not need NFL talent at every position to field a competent offense, and they have failed to field that competent offense this year. Now, I would push back and say, is there NFL talent at any position right now? Where is the NFL talent on offense right now? Is there a receiver that you feel comfortable would be drafted? Maybe DK, maybe Pauling, but there's nobody there. Is there a tight end? Nothing you can point to right now. Is there an offensive lineman that you think would get drafted? I think Jack Nelson would probably get drafted and put at a guard somewhere, but there's no first, second round lineman here. Is there a quarterback that you feel would be drafted right now? No. Is there a running back? Braylon Allen gets picked somewhere, probably. My point is, I don't think they need NFL talent at every position, but they probably need some NFL talent. And I don't think there is any right now, outside of a couple guys who might maybe mid-round draft picks. It's not a talented enough offense right now. Let's see. This is from Chris. He said too many positions that need a lot of help based on graduation and who goes pro. He mentions quarterback, D-line, running back, cornerback, safety, receiver, offensive line, plus a tougher schedule in 2024. And he's saying it's 2026 at the earliest when this team is back to where we hope it could be. Think about that, Badger fans. Do you have the patience to wait until 2026 to get back to this? Now, for those who say no, which is fair, it's totally fine. I'm not telling anybody how to fan. Do you think Paul Chryst would have this team being competitive with those schedules and what we've seen the last couple of years, the Paul Chryst tenure in 2024-25? Because the answer is probably no there too, right? I don't think Chryst is competing against that schedule either, the way that had been trending. So that's the one part I would say on that. Let's see if I had one more comment in here. This one's from Big Benny. He said, excited, but not as excited anymore. I have faith in Fickell flipping the roster, but the defensive intensity today, the Northwestern game, was disappointing. Cannot be a trend for the Wisconsin program going forward. I think that's what frustrates people to some degree. And I mentioned this in the previous show. I think like I can live with some losses. I really can. You don't want it, but you understand it. I can't live with the idea that it feels like we're just being out-toughed, outworked against the Northwestern team, right? There's no reason our defense should give up the amount of plays in the first half that they've given up in a couple of games this year. It's like they're just not locked in or trying almost. And that to me is the most difficult part to watch and see as a Badger fan. So I think there's a lot of great stuff here. I think a lot of people are dead on that this is a couple-year rebuild. I very much wonder what the Badger patience for a rebuild is. But more coming up, a couple of great casts too on Wisconsin. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's talk again tomorrow.